Imagine dedicating your life to helping kids, only to have one man decide you shouldn't exist, not because you failed, but because you were too good. This is the story of Mrs. Evelyn Thorne, the most beloved teacher in Oak Creek, and the moment the stability she had built began to crumble. Her classroom was a refuge of worn books, vanilla-scented candles, and projects that felt like museum pieces. She was warm, patient, in her 50s, with kind eyes, and one quiet mystery. No one knew anything about her life before she arrived 10 years ago. That mystery never mattered, until Marcus Sterling showed up. Sterling didn't just like silence, he enforced it like a prison warden. The first time he walked into Evelyn's class, the laughter died instantly. He didn't look at the students, he stared directly at Evelyn, his eyes scanning her not as a teacher, but as a target. He walked to her desk, ran a finger over her chaotic stack of papers, and whispered loud enough for the front row to hear. "Chaos suggests a chaotic mind, Mrs. Thorne, and I fix chaos." He didn't care about her perfect test scores. He cared about the one thing he sensed she was hiding, her history. Late at night, he didn't just check her personnel file. He hired a corrupt private investigator who cross-matched her photo with leaked databases and public record breaches. He wasn't looking for Mrs. Thorne. He was looking for who she was before, and at 3 a.m., the algorithm got a hit. A mugshot from 25 years ago. Same eyes, but a different name, Evelyn Vance. She hadn't just hidden her past, she had legally changed her identity to escape it. The background checks 10 years ago had missed it because the records were under a name that no longer existed. But Sterling had connected the dots. He held the printed mugshot, a terrified young woman booked for armed robbery and grand larceny. To him, this wasn't just a discovery, it was leverage. 3 years served. To Sterling, this wasn't policy, it was a trophy hunt. He didn't wait for a meeting. He intercepted her in the hallway, right as the bell rang, ensuring the corridor was flooded with students. "Pack your things, Evelyn," he said, then, louder, crueler, or should I say, inmate. He opened the folder just enough for Evelyn and 2 nearby staff members to see the mugshot, keeping it hidden from the students. Leo froze. Evelyn stopped, the color draining from her face not out of fear, but out of shame that her students were seeing her stripped of her dignity. She tried to speak, but Sterling raised a hand, not to stop her words, but to display the mugshot again, making silence her only option. Security was called. As she walked back to her classroom, the school already felt like it was pushing her out. Her students sensed everything the second she picked up her bag. "Class, I have to leave," she whispered. And what they did next would change everything. But that moment starts in the next chapter, when one student refuses to let the world destroy the only teacher who ever believed in him. By that night, Sterling leaked her mugshot to influential parents. And in a town like Oak Creek, one photo was enough to ignite every parent group and spread panic through the town. "Beloved teacher revealed" as ex-con spread across Facebook like gasoline meeting flame. 10 years of kindness, tutoring, and lives changed vanished in seconds. People who once adored Evelyn turned vicious, calling her dangerous, demanding to know how a felon had taught their kids. Meanwhile, Evelyn sat alone in her dim living room, phone buzzing with cruelty, curtains closed, watching her rebuilt life collapse one notification at a time. But the kids of Oak Creek didn't buy it. They knew who she truly was. Leo, heartbroken and furious, opened a group chat. "This isn't right. Mrs. Thorne wouldn't do something like that without a reason." He reminded them how she stayed after school to teach him to read, how she never gave up on any of them. Their grief hardened into resolve, then into action. They decided to do exactly what she taught them: look at the primary sources. While adults argued online, the kids dug into public court records. Leo and Maya, the tech genius, downloaded the old trial transcripts. At first it was overwhelming. Then Leo found the Exhibit C photo in the file. It wasn't a weapon. It was a plastic water pistol, clumsily painted black with shoe polish, chipping at the handle. The court transcript revealed the rest. She hadn't demanded the cash register. She had handed the terrified clerk a crumpled note that read, "I only need $5,000 for a surgery. I will pay you back." She wasn't a criminal mastermind. mastermind. She was a terrified sister holding a toy, shaking so hard she dropped it before the police even arrived. What came next changed everything. Evelyn wasn't running from her past, she was running to save someone. The kids kept digging and uncovered the truth. 25 years ago, Evelyn was the sole caretaker of her younger sister, Sarah. After losing their parents in a car accident, they were drowning in grief and medical bills. Then Sarah was diagnosed with a rare heart condition. The surgery needed was immediate and impossibly expensive. Insurance refused. Donations failed. Time was running out. In a moment of terrified love, Evelyn made the worst decision of her life. She robbed a store using a fake gun. She never spent a penny. She was arrested 2 blocks away. The store owner tried to drop the charges, but the state prosecuted her anyway. And the twist the kids never expected? Sarah survived. She grew up to become Dr. Sarah Thorne, a pediatric heart surgeon saving children every day. Evelyn's crime didn't create tragedy, it prevented one. Leo sent Sarah a trembling message. Your sister needs you. Please help. Then came the silence. Meanwhile, Evelyn was packing up her small house, preparing to disappear. Each box felt like another reminder she could never outrun her past. When pounding hit her door, she froze. Mrs. Thorne, please open up. It's Leo. She opened it slowly. Leo, Maya, and 3 others stood there, breathless, determined, carrying hope she didn't think she deserved. You can't leave, Leo said. We know about Sarah. Evelyn collapsed onto the porch, finally breaking. Through tears, she told them everything. Her fear, her guilt, the night she lost control trying to save the only family she had left. But outside, a storm was building. The school board meeting was hours away, and no one knew if Dr. Sarah Thorne had seen their message. The next door they knocked on would decide everything. Cut to the packed gymnasium, angry parents, buzzing rumors, and Sterling at the podium, feeding the crowd fear with the words armed robbery again and again. Then, silence. The double doors slammed open. A woman in a sharp suit strode inside with a confidence that sliced through the noise. Same eyes as Evelyn, same jawline. She went straight to the microphone. I would like to speak. Sterling scoffed. Residents only. Who are you? She stepped closer. I am Dr. Sarah Thorne, and I am the reason Evelyn went to prison. The room froze. Evelyn's breath caught. Sarah told them everything. How she was dying. How Evelyn begged the system for help. How no one listened. And then she dropped the truth that detonated the entire gym. Evelyn sacrificed her future for mine. Because of her, I lived. And today, I save children. But she wasn't done. She turned towards Sterling and revealed a secret that would not only rewrite Evelyn's story, but expose the darkest truth in the entire district. And that revelation begins in the next chapter, where the woman the town feared becomes the only person who ever protected them. And then she dedicated the rest of her life to teaching your children, giving them the love she couldn't give me while she was locked away. You call her a criminal? I call her a hero. Sarah turned to the school board, her voice steady. My sister served her time. She legally changed her name and rebuilt her life. There is no law preventing her from teaching. Only a policy about moral character. And you have seen her character for 10 years. She reached into her bag, but instead of a weapon, she pulled out a check. She risked her freedom for $5,000 to save my life. Today, I am donating $50,000 to this district to start the Second Chance Scholarship in Evelyn Thorne's name. She placed the check on the table, not as a bribe to keep her, but as a thank you for the woman she is. Whether you fire her or not, the money stays. But if you let her go, you aren't losing a criminal. You are losing the best teacher you have. The mood shifted instantly. The bribe was gone, only gratitude remained. The school board president stepped forward, looking at the check and then at Sterling. The record shows Mrs. Thorne has been a model citizen for 2 decades, she said. And looking at this room, I fail to see how she is a danger to anyone. In fact, she seems exactly like the kind of role model we want. She turned to Evelyn. Would you like to speak? Evelyn rose, trembling but resolute. I am not proud of what I did, she began. I deserved to go to prison. But prison taught me that life is precious and second chances matter. I promised myself that if I ever got one, I wouldn't waste it. I love teaching. I love this school. I love your children. The gym erupted, first a few claps, then dozens, then a broad standing ovation that filled the gym with applause. Sterling stood frozen, realizing the room no longer recognized him, not as a leader, not even as a threat. He thought they wanted punishment, but they wanted redemption. And as the applause thundered, no one noticed the quiet figure slipping out the back of the gym, someone who had been listening the entire time, someone whose return would unravel the next secret Evelyn thought would stay buried forever. The moment the board president slammed the gavel, the gym shook with relief, and the hook was immediate. A community that once condemned Evelyn now rose to crown her as their unexpected hero. "I move to reinstate Mrs. Thorne immediately, with a formal apology," she declared, and the unanimous vote sent a wave of emotion across the room. Parents cried, students cheered, and the redemption arc the town tried so hard to bury finally burst into the light. Sterling slipped out of the gym that night, humiliated, defeated, and 2 weeks later he was formally removed from his position and left Oak Creek as investigations began to close in on him. But the retention beat wasn't his downfall. It was what happened next. Evelyn returned to school the very next morning and walked into a classroom covered in hand-painted banners reading "Welcome Home" and "Our Hero." The students applauded as if she had survived a war. Leo hugged her tight, and she whispered, "You saved my life this time." But Leo only smiled and said, "You taught us to look for the truth." When Dr. Sarah Thorne stayed in town for a few days, the two sisters rebuilt years of silence over coffee cups and long walks, becoming symbols of a bond stronger than the system that once tore them apart. Her $50,000 donation became the Thorne's Second Chance Scholarship, giving students the opportunities the sisters never had. Evelyn's teaching changed. Too, more vulnerable, more real. She shared her past openly, transforming her trauma into lessons about consequences, humanity, and redemption. Kids who were slipping academically sat closer, listened harder. She became a mentor for at-risk youth, the teacher they trusted because she had lived the kind of pain they feared. Then the story exploded nationwide. A news network filmed a segment titled "The Crime of Love," and suddenly Evelyn was receiving letters from strangers who saw themselves in her struggle. Former convicts rebuilding their lives. Teachers who felt unseen. Siblings who had sacrificed everything for family. Her old secret became a lighthouse for thousands spread across the country. A year later, the school held a massive assembly to honor the anniversary of her reinstatement. The entire student body presented her with the Teacher of the Year award, the gym echoing with cheers. But as Evelyn stepped up to the microphone, her smile faltered for just a second. In the very back row, behind the bleachers, she spotted a familiar figure she hadn't seen since the night of the robbery, someone she prayed had stayed gone forever. And as the figure took one slow step forward, Evelyn felt the past she thought was finally buried begin to rise again. The ending begins with a quiet hook, the plaque's inscription catching the light as Evelyn holds it, her hands trembling. "To the teacher who taught us that the past is a lesson, not a life sentence." The words hit harder than any applause. Standing before the crowd of students and parents, she finally understood that her legacy was not a mugshot, not a mistake, not a headline. It was every child whose life she had touched. The following Monday, Evelyn walked straight to the chalkboard because for the first time in years, she wasn't running from anything. The room was silent, the banners still hanging. She picked up a piece of chalk, her hand steady for the first time in weeks. She didn't write a date. She didn't write a history fact. She wrote one sentence that Leo and every student would carry for the rest of their lives. She drove to the cemetery, sat beside her parents' grave, and placed the extra cup at their headstone. "We made it," she whispered. "Sarah is saving lives, and I am shaping them. We're okay." The closing sequence shifts to her empty classroom at sunset, the golden light washing over the desks like a soft curtain. The chalkboard still holds the day's lesson, the final message she hopes her students will carry for life. History is not just dates and wars. It is the story of people, their mistakes, and their triumphs. The camera slowly pans to her desk, where a new photograph rests, a smiling picture of Evelyn and Sarah taken at the assembly, the two sisters finally standing side by side without secrets, without shadows. The light fades, the room dims, and the screen goes black as the final words appear. "Don't judge a book by its cover, or a teacher by her past." And with that, The story closes not with noise or drama, but with a warmth that lingers, a quiet triumph that invites the viewer to reflect, to forgive, and to carry the message forward into their own lives.